I was speaking to somebody the other day who has a huge history in the military and was a Marine in the military, and we talked about discipline and motivation and that type of thing, and it always comes up. Like, my background is sport, my background is business, and within business, it's always a case that you will take somebody with a high-level sports background or a military background way in front of somebody who's been to a great school or got a great degree or a great education. It's always those two fields, sports and military. And we talked about that. And for me, it's always wild. There are lots of my family members that have been in the military, and we kind of argue about that because I think it's quite crazy to sign up for something given what we know about even recent history, but the last sort of 100, 150 years. It's really wild for me to think that you would kind of put your life on the line for a cause that you know nothing about. But that's my own personal opinion, and we talked about that a little bit. But we talked about the skill set. And the interesting thing is very similar to sport and very similar to what I say about what marathon running or what any sport, that kind of repetition, that continuous consistency that you need in order to be good at something and definitely to become great at something, what that actually does for you. And exactly the same in the military, what that daily kind of training and preparation for something like war actually does for you. And we both agreed that it sets you up for any situation. So that when you walk into any situation, whether it's a mega business meeting, whether it's a social situation, whether it's, carnage, whether it's some kind of problem that's going on, you're ready and you're able to be more calm. I always say this, but it's a little bit like a street fight. You can very easily see in a street fight who is used to fighting, who is trained in fighting, and who is not. It's two completely different mentalities, two completely different actions that are going on. And it's like that for military, and it's definitely like that for sports. You know that, for example, when you're training for a marathon, and this is great for you, if you're training for a 5K, 10K, marathon, whatever, what you need to do is to look forward into the future and say, right, on this day, I'm going to run 10K, or I'm going to run a marathon. And therefore, in order to get there, I need a certain amount of weeks, 12 weeks, plus including my 2-week taper, plus some time to get fit, and then I need to put some structure in there. And then what is layered over the top is that discipline, that consistency, because that initial motivation to go on a website and sign up, that's not good enough to get you there in peak physical condition, or the peak physical condition that you can get yourself into in a period of time. That's not enough. So you need that daily discipline in order to make it happen. Super important. And within that, you've kind of got planning, you've got the resilience, you've got the tenacity, you've got the discipline, which for me is always the most important, that work ethic. And then you've got a result. And you may or may not like that result. You may be disappointed. You might have put 5 months work in. You've done all the interval training. You've done all the long runs. You've built that endurance. And then on the day, it doesn't go to plan. And then it's disappointment. How do you deal with failure? How do you deal when it does go well, but it doesn't feel like you feel it should do? It's disappointment even if it fails. And for me, that often happened in my early career, that I'd hit the result, but I'd be disappointed by the result very, very quickly, and I think I could do better. And that would make me super motivated and driven to kind of sign up for the next and try to go faster. But it sets you up, that preparation just for a marathon, that's just one example, but sport does the same, and obviously military does the same as well. It sets you up for any situation in life. And I think now when you if you speak to anybody who's maybe 17, 18, and they're figuring out what they want to do at university, the one thing that's clear and consistent with that kind of 17 to 18-year-old is they have no clue what they want to do in the future. They may have an idea in terms of, I want to be on YouTube, or I want to be a doctor, or I want to be, and it's less and less those kind of doctor, lawyer, etc., and more to do with maybe modern careers, but it's essentially what they've had exposure to during their education. And I felt when I left school, I had exposure to what teachers do, what the doctor does when I get sick and I have to go and see the doctor, what a lawyer does from films, but I had no idea that a lawyer is actually kind of just a paper shuffler most of the time. It's not somebody who's arguing their case, he's not very flamboyantly dressed and arguing a case and going in front of the judge and and winning an argument publicly in a courtroom. It's not like that. It's kind of much more paperwork. So the kind of like the options that you see around you, and your parents, of course, that's what you feel is achievable for you. So unless you have some life experience, you're probably not going to know. And therefore, that decision that you need to make, and this happens in the UK, I think the US is 1 or 2 years different, high school and university, but at 18, you need to make a pretty big decision. What are you going to study at university? And ideally, that's relevant to your career. But more and more now, It's not relevant at all. And unless you want to be a chemist and you need to study chemistry, or unless you want to be a doctor and you need to have studied something relevant, unless you want to study law and it's got to be relevant, to do those things, you would have needed to know what you wanted to be almost at 16 in the UK, to study the right A levels, and then definitely at 18 to study the right degree in order to become the person, because that degree is going to be it's going to be your golden ticket in order to get there. And you've also got, don't come out with a 2.2 or a 2.1, you've got to get a first if you want to go into something like this. So at that stage in your life, 18 years old, I know what I felt like. I know that I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do, so I went traveling. And what I also kind of you live through is you start to change. So all my life had been sport. And all of a sudden at 17, 18, you get introduced to a party scene, you get introduced to more social situations, you get introduced to girls, and you get introduced to alcohol and everything that comes with a party scene. So all of a sudden, at those vital moments in life, when you need to be making wise decisions about your future, at that time when you really have no clue or you've had exposure to the things that happen in the world, you're also finding out new, more exciting things. And for me, that was a big time, and I needed to get that right. And the best possible thing I can think of is for me to go traveling and to kind of figure it out on the go. And I really enjoyed that, but it brought me back to endurance. And again, with business was for me, as I got into business, I luckily got into recruitment, so it was exactly the same as sport. The harder you work and the smarter you work, the more you're going to get paid. The idea of sitting next to somebody who's clocking in at 9 o'clock, clocking out at 5 o'clock, doesn't work weekends, doesn't do any extra homework on his job, the idea of sitting next to somebody like that and getting paid the same blows my mind. So yeah, like it's a great background, the military, because it will instill that level of confidence in you so that you can take that into the real world. So yeah, just an idea, and just a kind of, you should know that if you're training for something meaningful, like marathon, like 5K, like 10K, any distance running, or you're in the gym training, and it's that consistency, that discipline, that tenacity that you need, you're learning so much from those things that can be inserted to the rest of your life. It's hyper important. I cannot stress how much importance that you should give that over a certificate of education that you got a 2-1 or something like that at university, and therefore you're entitled to a certain type of career. I'll make another video on the other side of the fence quite soon, but when I'm dealing with people and people who want to work for my company and people I'm sort of advising in their career and things like that, it blows my mind to what people's expectations are based on what their experience is. But yeah, we'll get into that in another video, but thanks a lot for listening. If you've been in the military, if you feel that your sports career is benefiting your career and your business, please let me know in the comments. I love to hear about stuff like that because there's lots of transferable skills. If you do it right, there's so much opportunity in both fields, and both complement each other really well. If you've been great in business, likelihood is that you're going to be able to put a structure together and a plan together to nail the marathon. It's just as simple as that.